Hello, Sally. Thank you so much for joining us today. This LAR interview of all the candidates is something that we're very happy to be able to provide the community. And it's very nice of you to take time out of a very busy campaign schedule to join us today. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, Freddie. Glad to have this chance to chat. So can I tell you a little bit about why I'm running?
I would love for you to do that. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm running because I think over the last 4 years, we've accomplished a lot. Um, this is a difficult job, and experience matters, and commitment matters. So I think I bring both of those to the table. And I view serving on city council as an extension of my community service. And I'll talk more about that as we go through some of the questions. But I think there's more to do. And I want to continue to promote collaborative governance to better meet our goals. So thank you for giving me that chance. I can talk a little bit about the accomplishments, or we can just go straight into the questions.
If you'd like to, that would be just wonderful.
All right. So what did we accomplish over the past 4 years? Well, we've achieved a balanced budget, and actually looking forward, we're projecting a surplus in the 2024-25 budget. We've reduced legal expenses. We've improved public safety through implementing ALPRs, the automatic license plate readers that the police department is using now. And we've made investments in our emergency operations center so that we'll be ready with the proper equipment and capabilities in case of a disaster or emergency. So our housing element was approved by the state last September, and we all aligned, commission, staff, and council, around clear and consistent budget priorities. So to me, those are some of the major accomplishments over the past 4 years. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. So I'll let you take it away with the questions now.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So the first question is, why do you think you're qualified to be a city council member? And you have been a city council member for the past 4 years, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about your qualifications that help you run the city of Los Altos.
Yes, thank you. I'm not even going to start out with my council experience. I will get to that, but I think my base qualifications are from the 15 years I've spent volunteering in our community. I served initially working with nonprofits, served on boards, been on service club organizations. I served on El Camino's Healthcare Community Advisory Commission. That was a short-lived board, but it was there for 2 years. I served on it. I was on the board and president of Mentor Tutor Connection. I'm a member of Los Altos Rotary, and there's probably other things, but those are three main things that I was experienced in just in the community. At that same time, I was also working on commissions. I served 8 years on commissions before serving on council. So a full 4-year term on the Design Review Commission focused on single family homes, and a full 4-year term on the Planning Commission, of course, focused on the town overall. So I started out making people in a very small area mad, and then going to making people in a very bigger area mad. So and then I went to council, and I was elected in 2020, speaking of getting people mad. and and I served as mayor last year, and that was fun. It was an honor. It was a lot of work. But I feel very happy to have had that experience. So I think I'm also qualified because, as shown in my tagline for my materials, and I'm not sure how many people will have seen those, but I'll mention those later on, I am clear, objective, and collaborative. And by being that, I think that helps our council meetings be more constructive, and we're able to potentially work together better and get more done. And I mentioned clear, and I think clarity is something I really try to use in council meetings to help the public understand the context of the decisions we make. And as you know full well, most decisions aren't made willy-nilly all in one night. There's usually a very long process behind it, sometimes covering many years. And so I like to provide clarity on the whole process because sometimes people don't necessarily haven't been involved the whole time, and they think it's a new thing, but it's really not. So I really think clarity is important in terms of helping the public understand why council is faced with and make certain decisions. So that's why I feel unqualified.
All right, thank you. This is a question that is going to go to your second term.
Mm.
What do you realistically hope to achieve in the first year of your second term? And then what would you like to achieve over the whole 4-year period?
Okay, so one of the, or if not the top priority in the first year is to really figure out how we're going to finance and start working towards improving our public safety infrastructure. And what that means is both our firehouse roofs, which are in need of repair, and also our police station, which probably we need to do a whole new building. So one of the accomplishments I mentioned earlier about a balanced budget, we've put in place these reserve funds, and we now have a reserve building fund. And so you probably are aware, Freddie, but other people may not be, that the mayor this year, Jonathan Weinberg, and I were on a subcommittee last year looking at how we could move towards improving our public safety infrastructure. Well, because we've put in place building reserve funds and have a balanced budget and a much stronger financial position, the new council, depending on who's on it, will be looking at this question. And if I'm reelected, I have the background from having been involved with it a year ago and also now having improved city finances to fix our fire station roofs, which we can do out of the building fund, and potentially borrow less to provide an improved police station. So that's kind of a long answer, but it's really the most important thing we need to do right off the bat. One other thing I'll mention for that first year, even though the decisions will be made by the end of this year, is the by-district elections. So I think a lot of people are following this. It's gotten a lot of publicity and community engagement. But what comes next after council makes whatever decision we do by the end of October? So is there a strategic plan for how we can help our community go to by districts more constructively, or are there other avenues we can take? Are there lobbying efforts that we can undertake with the state legislature, whatever? So I think what we do about our decisions about going to districts will be very important then to work on during the first year of the new council. So then in the longer term, and I know you were a big fan of reach codes. And probably are not mourning the fact that they are now defunct. Yeah, right. And so what we are really turning to is how can we achieve voluntary electrification? And this, I think, makes so much sense. And in reality, when you look at the REACH codes, because they were in the building codes, they were really focused on new development or large remodels. And that's really the tip of the iceberg of the housing we have in Los Altos. And so if we actually focus on voluntary electrification of people in existing houses, you get people who want to do this. Doesn't bother anybody else, and you actually have a bigger pool and potentially a bigger impact for electrification. So I think that plus focusing on our resilience. I mentioned the Emergency Operations Center a little earlier. I think it's really important because we're seeing more and more different, not all here in the Bay Area, but more and more different flavors of disasters due to our changing climate, and we need to be well prepared for those. And our EOC, I think, will be fully operational over the next year or two. And I know you're involved, as are a lot of other folks that I know, in our emergency response operations. So there's a lot that we need to do to improve our ability in the case of emergency to stand on our own 2 feet for at least a week sometimes while infrastructure is down or being used for critical missions. So that's what I see as the important things in the first year and then the first 4 years. I mean, there's others. Of course, we have to focus on safe streets and traffic. But I wanted to spend a little bit more time on those ones I just went into in more depth.
Okay, thank you. This question is a little edgy, but what are you going to do to hold staff accountable for and to keep track of the multitude of projects that the city has?
So, so we're very fortunate, as you are well aware, to have a strong and effective city manager. And Gabe England has the ability to talk to everybody about anything. I am constantly amazed at his ability to respond at almost all hours of the day and night, every day of the week. He exhausts me for sure.
Yes.
But one of the key elements to this question is to make sure that we actually understand and respect the council city manager form of government. And so the analogy I use to help people understand what that means is that Gabe, as the city manager, is the CEO, and the council is the board of directors. And so we're focused on policy as a board or as the council, as we are. We're not supposed to go in and run things. We don't tell staff what to do, and because in reality, staff finds a hard time to, if a council person tells them what to do, they feel like they have to do it. And actually, even if a commissioner tells them what to do, they're put in an awkward position. So I think we've gotten a lot better over the last 4 years I've been on council to respect that city council, city manager form of government. Now, that said, the key to keeping all of us accountable is really to work together as a team and to incorporate more tracking elements. And so you're familiar, because I know you're very familiar with the council packets, how for our housing element update, at the end of every packet, we have a multi-page list of all the tasks we have to get done for the housing element. And they're color-coded by program, whether we've completed them, started them, midway through, whatever the legend is for our accomplishments on that. I think we should have a similar tracking format for a lot of our major plans. So our Complete Streets Master Plan, we should be tracking that. We can see, I mean, we really have, staff did a good job implementing such a plan for our capital improvements program. It's a slightly different acronym now, but you know what I mean, capital investment. So we can all see it. I mean, the same thing applies, I think, for our CAP, the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. We can prioritize things, see where we're making progress. And I think that's one of the best ways to really hold each other accountable, to see what we said we're going to do and then see what kind of progress we're making. So that is what I would suggest in terms of accountability and tracking.
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting idea. Very, very good. Let me ask you about community engagement. Do you think current community engagement is adequate? And if you don't, how would you improve it?
Right. So looking at some of our major initiatives or programs or to-dos, that's not the right word, but that we have going on, we've done a lot of community engagement. And as you know, like looking at getting the housing element adopted and then eventually certified by the state, there was a lot of community engagement there. We're going through the by district process. There's a lot of community engagement there as well. But human nature being such as it is, we're all busy people. And unless something's going to affect us personally, you're not engaged, and in fact you're usually not paying attention. So I'm going to quote someone that you know well, who I spoke to during break on a council meeting, and she, initials FW, said to me, you can, regarding community engagement, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I don't know, so we can never get anybody. I think we're doing well on some of our major programs. Maybe we could do better on some of the less visible ones. But but really, there's all sorts of email lists. Like I think it comes out every Saturday, the city manager newsletter, and there's all sorts of avenues. But most people don't have the time until you hear, oh my goodness, my favorite shopping center is being rezoned or something like that. So it's a conundrum. I think we do a lot, particularly on the major things, and maybe there's more that can be done, but in reality, we're never going to reach anybody until they're affected by it.
Thank you. You know, it's good points. It's very difficult. It really is a conundrum. These interviews are an attempt to get information about all the candidates out to the community so
Yes.
that they can be better informed when they go to the ballot box on November 5th and drop that ballot in or mail it in. But we've been fortunate. Everyone has agreed to do the interviews, and I just want to say thank you so very much from Los Altos residents, LAR, for taking time out of what I know is a really busy campaign calendar this election cycle and spending time with us to answer these questions. And it gives us and the people that we can reach an opportunity to get some insight into how you think, how you approach problems, and how you want to work together to solve them. So thank you, Sally. Much appreciated.
Well, you're welcome, Freddie. You sound like you're closing. Do you want to do question number 5? You didn't ask me the tough one.
Oh my goodness, I didn't. You're right. This is a tough question, and it's a very current issue.
Mhm.
There are 226 parking spaces on parking plazas 7 and 8. And the question is, how can you make certain that there is no net loss of parking spaces? How can you make certain that the city receives the approximate $20 million land value? And how can you make certain that the city will have the revenue that's generated by people who park on those parking spaces and shop or go to the restaurants?
Okay. Aren't you glad I pointed out that
I'm
question?
certainly glad you did. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll start in order. Regarding the parking spaces, and it's a very complicated process that we're going through. And again, this was something that had been identified during, I should say, was identified was um, identified lots 7 and 8, parking plazas 7 and 8 to become housing, right? So this was first identified in the Downtown Vision program, again, a program that had a lot of community input. And then we adopted it in the housing element update. So we've been looking at that and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do or is a possibility to do for quite some time. So of course, this is one of the things that many people have been surprised about. Again, I understand that, but it was not just like pulled out of a drawer in the middle of the night or anything like that. So in terms of no net loss of parking spaces, the city is going to make a request for, I think it's request for offers. It's a request for something. I think it's RFO. And we have laid out criteria, which includes at least replacing the 226, if not doing more, for whatever deal they're going to offer us to collaborate with us on parking plazas 7 and 8. So we expect there to be a lot of interest. And if the bids are going to be competitive, then the developer, I'll call it developers, I'm assuming it's developers who are going to bid on these things, will have to propose something attractive. So we've made it pretty clear, though I think we've heard a council member say, well, maybe the parking is negotiable. But in the RFO, we're saying we want these parking spaces at least replaced 1 for 1. And those parking spaces that go through this surplus lands act deal, whether it's a lease or an acquisition, and that remains to be seen, whether it's leased from the city under certain terms or whether it's acquired under even more advantageous terms for the city, is that they have to propose something that makes sense for us. So how do we get value? So moving on to the approximately $20 million land value, if you have $20 million worth of land and you put, so that's about 2 acres, right? So if you put one little house, let's say a $1,500 ranch house, you're not really capitalizing on that $20 million piece of land. And so if you put 10 ranch houses and you're more, so we're looking for developments that a higher density to put more housing there, which then actually usually will meet or exceed the land value of the $20 million. So that's how, because again, we're not talking about a single ranch house on 2 acres. We're talking about some creative and hopefully a development with community benefits to it. Again, that would be part of the offers that they make to participate towards this land. And then the revenue generated by the parking spaces. So I do know that some people just don't like underground parking. There are other people who prefer underground parking because it's shadier, the birds aren't down there
Yeah.
leaving offerings on people's cars. So I do think it'll be a shift to get used to that. But if you can wave a magic wand and there's some project there, then there will be the ability to at least match, if not create greater revenues for the businesses around town. And the property owners downtown have been talking to the candidates to understand, they're very interested in what goes on in plazas 7 and 8 for the very reason that you mentioned there. The hard part really is the construction. So let's say we get a really great deal that they're going to give us, let's say 300 parking spaces, and they're going to do a good job parking the housing. So the parking in the housing is a whole separate requirement. That will be under affordable housing laws, the parking for the housing, whereas what we're asking for through Surplus Lands Act, these 226 parking spaces, that is not under affordable housing laws. That's under surplus land. I realize that's confusing and most people aren't going to know what in the world I'm talking about, but I did want to make that differentiation. Anyway, if we could wave a magic wand, which obviously we don't have, and all of a sudden we have that development on those 2 plazas done, I believe that we can have a boost to our businesses. It's really more of a forward-looking where people live and shop where they live and maybe even work where they live. And other cities, we know Menlo Park has put some of its parking plazas up, as have other jurisdictions. So this is kind of the way things are going. I think it's a little difficult to get there because we have to do the construction, but whatever happens will be phased and thought out fairly carefully. And they're already trying to think about ways to do that. And that would be part of the proposals. So I realize that's a long answer. It's a complicated question. And I don't know that my answer made that much sense. It made sense to you, I'm sure, because you follow this. But so anyway, that's how I would address that. I do think we'll get more than our value out of the land, that we'll be able to replace the parking spaces, and that our businesses in the long term will benefit. It's just making that transition could be somewhat more difficult.
Thank you. Yes, that's an encouraging answer, and I think it would be good if more people understood that this it can be a real win-win for the city.
Right.
It's just it is a complicated situation, but taking the time to understand it, I think, will help people who are concerned. So appreciate the I appreciate the long answer, because
Okay.
it needs a long answer.
Right. It's not simple, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So
So, well, Sally, again, I do want to thank you very much. Very much appreciated. It's really good for the community to be able to hear from you and from all the other candidates. And this is a great opportunity for them to understand your positions on certain issues. So thank you so much.
Oh, great. Well, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed our conversations, like I enjoy all of our conversations, frankly. Can I just give a few little final details for folks in case they want more information about me?
Please do. Yes.
Okay, so I would refer people to my website, which I've tried to make more focused on pictures than on words, so it's a little easier to get through. My website is at sallyforlosaltos.com, and that's the word for, F-O-R. So it's pretty self-explanatory. And I think that my decisions and actions this past 4 years have proven that I'm a forward and empathetic leader, and I'm committed to listening respectfully, keeping an open mind, and continuing to work together to keep Los Altos a vibrant, safe, and inclusive community for all of us. So I would be honored to represent us again for the next 4 years, and I respectfully ask for your vote. So thank you, Freddie, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. Good luck at the election.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.